Well, hey there, and welcome back to the Pilates Business Podcast. I'm Seran Glanfield. I am the founder of Spring 3. I'm also the founder of my Thrive business coaching program. And inside of that program, I work with studio owners all over the world. And like you, they love teaching. They love what they do. What inspired them to step into studio ownership was sharing this love of movement and the impact that it's had on their lives with others. They love seeing their clients' lives change as a result of adding this movement practice, seeing them leave their studios full of energy, full of confidence, brighter than ever, right? And loving that community feeling that you created inside of your studio. Oftentimes, though, the business side feels a little heavier. Oftentimes, you're working a lot of hours, both in teaching, but perhaps also doing the marketing, the admin, which is really common in founder-operated businesses. So you're juggling all of that, but also probably a lot of things outside of the studio as well. And oftentimes, because of all of that effort and because of how stretched you may be, it may also feel a little bit fragile. And when things feel a bit fragile, your brain does something pretty predictable, actually. It sort of solves all of this with one quick and easy solution, which says, if I just had more of something, and typically that more of thing is clients, revenue, income, everything would be easier. And if we could wave that magic wand, more clients would bring in more revenue would bring less stress, and less stress would bring more freedom, and life would be amazing, right? And I think that this is a funny little story that our brain tells us, because this is not actually what happens. And the truth, I think, that many of us, many studio owners come to realize until it might be too late or they're too deep into it, is that when you build a business, there are a lot of different pieces of the puzzle that need to fit together. Okay. And when I start working with my studio owners, we look at all of these different pieces. And so I can share with you some insights from that experience. And this is what I like to do here on this podcast. And what I've observed is that if you have a studio, no matter what size, whether you're just starting out with a handful of clients, whether you have multiple locations, if your systems are a little bit loose, then what we find is adding more into the mix just magnifies the cracks. The sooner you get people in, the quicker they leave. It sort of creates this sort of hamster wheel effect. If your retention is weak, that you're just going to see more people churning, right? You're going to see more people, yes, coming in the door, and maybe that sounds great, but actually they're leaving just as quickly. And what we see then internally from a team and a leadership perspective is that if you are already stretched as a leader, if you are leading your business from a place of reactivity, then adding more to your plate, more people, whether it's clients or team members, will only increase more friction for you, will only increase more workload for you in some way. And if your pricing isn't strategic, more clients just increase the workload, right? And not necessarily making you more profit. And I will say that when we work with studio owners inside of Thrive and we can see these specific pieces of the puzzle perhaps not quite fitting into that quite right, it just creates a lot of tension and friction and frustration. And this is what I'm seeing a lot of across the industry right now. Right now, marketing is often not always the bottleneck in studio growth. In fact, what we're seeing increasingly is that there are many studios out there who are not experiencing an issue with getting clients or with having the right number of clients. It's actually that the bottlenecks exist in other parts of the business. Capacity, for example, leadership, retention, sophistication, pricing structure and architecture. Some of that is actually becoming the real constraints. So I guess what I'm saying is that the next level of growth, the next phase of growth for so many studio owners is not going to come from just adding more clients into the business. It's not necessarily just about more leads and lead generation. It's actually about having a smarter structure internally. And inside Thrive, this is what we focus on relentlessly, so that at every phase of growth, your entire business is optimized. So the question is not, how do we grow the fastest? It's how do we grow the smartest? Because over and over again, growth without structure just truly does equal more stress. And that growth with structure, when you do have systems and structure in place, oh my goodness, it brings predictability and sustainability. And what I found is that those who stay in business the longest, who have long-term businesses that give them the income and the lifestyle that they want as owners, are building businesses with structure, with systems, and they're building businesses that then are sustainable in their growth and profitable and highly predictable. Okay. So I want to take a few moments now to break it down for you. And I think that let's just kick off with, what the sort of number one problem we see, which is that when a studio owner feels like their business is a little fragile, a little unstable, or they're feeling like it's they're a little stretched, they're not sure if the business is growing or not growing, the instinct is just to say, okay, I just need more clients will fix the problem, right? But, if you're already exhausted and if your onboarding isn't optimized, if you don't have proper retention set up, then what we often find is that more clients simply increase the pressure. And I will also add that typically we see sort of two go-to sort of ideas that might be solving this problem, which is that either they're looking for new clients as the only solution, or they want to play with their pricing. And in both cases, I'm going to say, take a breath and let's have a look at a little bit deeper into what is happening inside of the business. Because when you are either you're pricing reactively, or if you're simply saying, okay, the only solution here is adding new clients, then what we often find is more clients simply kind of increases the pressure, right? It's like pouring water into a bucket with holes. You feel busy, right? Because the bucket is filling with water. You feel momentum, but you probably still don't feel like everything is secure, everything is predictable, right? And this is often where I see that burnout really actually accelerate, right? And that goes against what you might expect, because you might expect that burnout disappears when you feel like you've got new clients, right? This is the association that we often tend to make with ourselves. We sort of say, okay, if we have more clients, then life will be great. If we have more clients, then I won't be so exhausted all the time. But the reality is that if you are in a spot where you are, essentially pouring water into a bucket with holes, right? This is where I actually see burnout accelerate, because now you're managing more, you're teaching more, you're managing more, you're answering more messages, you're managing more people. And, every single person who walks into your business brings their own stuff with them. So on some level, there is more problems to solve, right? And without the additional structure operationally, we don't see profit and income rise proportionately. And we also don't see stress decline in proportion to that typically. And often those two things come together and create what I call that sort of the studio owner resentment, where you're feeling just constantly like you're in reactive mode, you're pushing, and you're waiting for that moment where it all just calms down, but it doesn't come. And so I'm inviting you, as you kind of think about how this might reflect towards your business and the way that your business looks right now, is perhaps instead of asking, how do I get more clients? For a moment, just think about if you doubled your client number overnight, tomorrow morning, you woke up and you had twice as many people booked into your classes tomorrow. Would your business feel calm, or would it feel more chaotic? And, this is a question I think that often changes everything, because we don't often take the time to really think through, okay, well, actually, what would happen if my business doubled overnight, or over 2 months, or 2 weeks? What would it look like, right? And I think it's important to think about that, because immediately you're probably seeing where there are bottlenecks in your business. And when we see those bottlenecks, they're usually solved by more systems and more structure, which typically adds to more capacity for you and your team and your business. Okay. So inside Thrive, my number one priority is to set your business up to scale. And we don't scale until your business has all of that structure inside of it, because it's kind of like building a house of cards without it, right? It will topple and you will probably be the one to fall first, right? So inside of Thrive, we focus on strengthening your retention systems. We focus on how much capacity you truly have right now and how much you want to have in your sort of dream goal that you have for yourself. We look at your pricing, we simplify operations. And because we are engineering scale and that growth, we're engineering it and we're designing your business for it, right? We're building your business in a very sustainable way. We're not chasing something. We're not massively reacting to something. You're growing in a way that is sustained, it is predictable, and it's planned, right? And so there's not this sort of massive burnout that happens. Now, the other thing I want to just also talk about while we're on this particular topic is that we often associate this idea of growth and revenue milestones, again, with this whole the world will be great again, right? And so I think that many studio owners look at revenue milestones. Maybe that's $30,000 months, $40,000 months, $50,000 months even, and think to themselves, if only we had that, if we only added this much more to our revenue each month, then again, life would be great. We would have everything we wanted. I would be calm. I would be relaxed. I would put my feet up at the end of the day and everything would just run so smoothly, right? But oftentimes, studio owners who are making, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus thousand a month in revenue, again, are in a world of chaos because they're lacking structure. And even in those cases, very frequently, when we look at the margins, they're not always as high as you might think they are, right? And because when we think about not your revenue number, that is a number, it's a data point, but it doesn't necessarily tell you what you're taking home, right? I've seen studios who are generating $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a month in revenue, and the owner is still not paying themselves. You guys, it doesn't always correlate in the way that you think, right? And revenue grows through smart strategies, but profit also grows through smart strategies as well. And having that pricing really designed well and being really mindful of all of your data points is only more important as you grow, because the last thing you're going to want to do is to build this incredibly looking business from a revenue perspective that is utterly failing from a profit perspective, right? And so if we see new clients joining your studio and the pricing is not optimized, it just creates more work and more expenses for you without more profit. And the impact of that is that you're busier than ever, right? Everyone thinks that you're winning. Everyone thinks that you are making, bank, right? But your take home hasn't changed. And so now what happens is that the business owns you, right? And we don't want that. You own the business. I want you to be able to enjoy all of the fruits of your work and labor, right? And so smarter growth is thinking about how do we look at this business and optimize it for how much it can generate from a revenue and a profit perspective on an hourly basis, right? On a per square foot basis. How do we design pricing that is aligned with the demand, that is aligned with the market, but that is also aligned with our profit goals? And how do we build offers that support our clients, what they're looking to achieve, and is aligned with what we're looking to achieve in the business as well? And so that's why inside of Thrive, when we look at pricing, we aren't just looking at what your competitors are charging. We aren't just looking at what the average is. We're not just looking at what you're paying your instructors. We're looking at your whole ecosystem. We're looking at your capacity. We're looking at your profit. We're looking at your growth goals. We're looking at your client base. And we focus on not discount campaigns to win new leads, but actually to build a machine that creates this ongoing revenue generation for you as well as profit generation for you, okay? Because we want to make sure that your pricing is optimized before you scale and grow. We cannot build on shaky foundations, right? And the pricing part is so critical. So sustainable studios always optimize their pricing first before they expand. Bigger is not always better, especially when you're building on something that is a little shaky already. Stronger is always better. So we build that strong foundation first. And that's what we do inside of Thrive with the program that we have inside of Thrive that focuses on designing your business really solidly, which is just so fundamental. And often this is the piece that is overlooked. And I can't tell you how empowering it is to go and do this sort of assessment analysis of your business and see exactly where there are these gaps. And when you plug them and your business is more solid because of it, you are more confident in the way that you're making decisions. You're more empowered. And ultimately, when I work with my studio owners, that's what I want for you guys. I don't want you to be constantly relying on me for every single answer. I want you to feel empowered so that you can go out there into the world and build some incredible businesses, some incredible studios that serve your community and bring them the joy that we know movement can bring to all of us. Okay, so I do want to just talk about one or two more things before I wrap up this episode with you guys, because this is all so important. Now, I think in the beginning, when you start out owning your studio, you are the business. It is an extension of you, right? But as you grow, you add team members, you add structure, you add some systems in. And the business is still going to depend on you in a lot of ways, but possibly in a few different ways as well. And as you grow, at some point, you will begin to find that you have to step up into that leadership position. And typically, we find that is a bit of an evolution of yourself. Not always, but often. And so that can often be a bit of a bottleneck. When you start out as a teacher and you hire your amazing friends who are teachers to come and work for you, it's often a challenge to step into a role that isn't like a side-by-side teammate. But when you are working alongside someone as a leader in the business, things often shift. And when you have more instructors and more communication and more delegation and more accountability, suddenly you're managing, right? You're managing people. You're a manager, right? And you're a leader. And leadership load often increases faster than the skills that you can develop, right? So oftentimes we find the leadership skills lagging behind what the business needs from you in terms of leadership. And this often feels like a bit of an overwhelm to studio owners, where you feel you can sense there is a responsibility there, and often that can feel quite heavy because your skill set hasn't quite adapted to be able to feel really strong and capable when it comes to leadership and management. And oftentimes, because of all of that and because of how that makes us all feel, we often find it to be something that you want to shy away from. So you don't want to add team members because you don't want to have to manage more people. You don't want to delegate more. And because we don't feel like we're good at it, we often shy away from it even more, which often obviously has the reverse effect for what we want. And so you step back from teaching because you don't have as much time for it. You find other people to do that, but then you often become this final approver for everything else. And you're often doing some other things and managing people in a way. And you weren't really anticipating this is where you were going to be, right? And I think that when you're growing, no matter what business you're in, it does require you to evolve. You to evolve in terms of your skills, for sure, but also in terms of how you identify within your business. You move from instructor to team leader, perhaps, to manager, to leader of the entire business, to that CEO level, right? And that does then require you to be thoughtful about the skills that you're developing, and when not just in terms of your sort of knowledge of business, right, or your knowledge of finances, but also in terms of your ability to make decisions that are beneficial for your business, right? In order for you to really understand what your performance looks like for your team and for your business, in order for you to understand what the different roles are that exist in your business, and how you should structure and organize your time and where your energy is best placed. And that's a lot to develop and grow into. And that's why inside of Thrive, we're not just focused on marketing and growth of your business. I'm also focused on you as the leader. We want to help you to build leadership capacity as well, because frankly, your studio cannot grow beyond your ability, beyond what you're capable of doing. So in order for your business to grow at some point, it's likely that you will need to develop your professional skills as well around things perhaps that you were not expecting, around things like knowing the data, knowing numbers, understanding how to filter for specific opportunities, how to assess and analyze your business and audit what needs to get done, how to build systems into your business, how to manage your people in a way that makes sure that they are as high performing and high achieving as you. And I think that all of this comes from a place of, for us inside of Spring 3 and all of our members of our team here, we want to help our studio owners to really grow in a way that, as I've said many times today, really sustainable, profitable and fulfilling, frankly. And I think that typically, and often what we're seeing in today's industry, many studio owners are growing in a very reactive way. And so you're adding classes as wait lists appear, you're discounting when months feel slow, you're posting more when you're not getting, quite so many people in the door. And it's sort of like this very reactive way to run a business. And it kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat. And so you're taking action, there is momentum, but it often doesn't have a whole ton of direction. And when you're growing without intention, it can often feel a little bit chaotic, right? And so what happens is, yes, you might be seeing growth, but it might feel chaotic. It might make you feel like you're not in control of your business growth, and you're not in control of how you spend your time, and you're not in control of where you spend your energy. And you wonder if you're on the right track and if this is the business that you actually wanted when you started out. And I think that when you're willing to have the awareness and to be mindful of growing smarter, that means asking perhaps a different set of questions. So that means reflecting on whether this is the kind of business I actually want, or what does it look like for this business to be a part of my life in the way that I want it to be? What does sustainability look like for me? And be honest, what revenue am I looking for? What is my revenue goal? What is the revenue goal that I need? And obviously the profit and income goal also that supports my life. And that perhaps is not just supporting the ego or this sort of competitive nature of what you see other people sharing with you that they make in terms of revenue, which, by the way, may or may not reflect where they're at in profit, right? And I think that when we work together, it's all about ensuring that you are profitable, that your business is predictable, that your operations are clean and streamlined, that you feel confident and empowered as the leader of your business, and that all of that actually fits really, really nicely into the way that you want your business to interact with your life. Because inside of Thrive, we have women and men from all over the world at various stages of business and life, and very few of them can give 100% of their energy and effort 100% of the time to their business. There are other hats that you're wearing and other things that you want to work on and do and spend time and energy doing. And if you want to build a business that lasts, and if you want to build a business that is sustainable, I'm talking about building a business that works with where you're at in your life today, but also where you want to be in your life 2, 3, 4, or 5 years from now as well. Because it's not always about scaling for the sake of scaling. I want to help you build something super solid that lasts and is fulfilling for you so that you can continue to deliver those amazing experiences for your clients. You can show up every single day and be with them, smiling and laughing and moving your bodies, knowing that you are making that very, very positive impact on the world and on your community that you set out to do. So, quick recap. I have to say, more clients are not always automatically the answer to all problems in your business, okay? More clients without structure creates more pressure on everything and everyone. More revenue without optimizing your pricing often creates thin margins. More team without leadership creates just more management overwhelm for you. And often more growth without really focused on your vision often leads to regret down the road, honestly. And I've seen it. Studios owners will close their businesses because it turned into something that they didn't actually want. And the studios that win long term are not always the ones who are pushing every day of the week. They are the ones who are most intentional about how they're growing, right? And in the world that we're in today, this year and beyond, with the level of competition, with the level of investment that's coming into this industry, it is going to be about mastering sustainability in your studio business. And that's exactly why Thrive exists. Inside Thrive, we don't just help you to fill classes, although we do that too, but we also help you to build predictable lead generation, to increase the retention of your clients, to design pricing that supports a strong margin, create systems that helps your operations run really smoothly, strengthens your leadership capacity, protects your time and your energy so that you can show up as your best self, and ultimately helps you build a business that feels calm, but also strong. right? Not chaotic. And so if you're tired of feeling like you're chasing, if you want the smartest growth strategies, if you want a business that truly supports your life, then I would love for you to learn more about Thrive. Because the goal isn't just to get by, just to be doing okay. The goal is to make it solid, to make it sustainable, to make it profitable, and also to make it fulfilling for you. So you can learn more at spring3.com. Please go ahead and book a discovery call with me and my team where we can talk about that fit with you. And if this episode hit home with you and you want to share it with another studio owner who perhaps also might need to hear some of what we've talked about today, please, please, please go ahead and share it with you. I'll see you next week.